Welcome to the Deep Dive. We've got a really interesting set of sources today looking at how social media has, well, completely shifted from just sharing holiday snaps to being this critical marketing engine for real estate agents.
Yeah, and we're not just skimming the surface here. The goal is to really unpack this. We're talking about a strategic blueprint using, solid psychological principles and connecting them straight to what you actually do online, how you build your brand, how you generate leads consistently, and the big one, turning those followers into actual clients.
Exactly. And that strategy piece is, I think, what separates the agents who really thrive online from those just sort of throwing posts out there now and then. So we're going to frame this deep dive around this core ideas: influence, building trust, and crucially, consistent communication. The real power here isn't about chasing the latest algorithm fad. It's about understanding, well, human psychology. Why do people connect online? Why trust one agent over the, hundreds scrolling past? We're digging into how you move beyond just like posting listings, that transactional stuff, to building a real authentic brand, because that, according to the research we're looking at, is what earns trust in this super crowded digital space. It helps you become that expert guide, not just another salesperson.
Okay, let's dive right in. The sources hit hard on this fundamental point for sales, especially real estate, in the digital age. You're either visible or you're invisible. And importantly, being invisible isn't bad luck. It's presented as a choice agents make by, well, not acting.
It's the absolute baseline. Visibility is it's the price of admission now. If you're not consistently where potential clients are spending their time, and let's be honest, that's largely social media, then you effectively don't exist when they actually need someone. And that moment of need, what is it for an agent? It's when someone asks their friend, hey, who was that great agent you used? Or, know anyone who can sell my place fast?
Your number one goal, digitally speaking, is to be that name, the first one that talks into their head. You need to be top of mind.
Right, top of mind. So how do we actually translate that idea into daily digital actions? The material points out that a lot of professionals kind of fail because they assume people know them or remember what they do. That's a huge blind spot. Agents might be great shaking hands at an event, but online, memory fades fast without constant reinforcement. So to get and stay top of mind, you have to nail 3 basic things repeatedly, like in almost every piece of content. First, who you are. This isn't just your name, it's recognition tied to trust, likability. Your face, your voice, your personality, people need to know it and ideally like it. Second, what you do, and be specific. I list and sell homes, or I help people find investment properties. It's amazing how much content goes out where you kind of have to guess the person's job, don't assume they know. And third, where you do it. Your company, sure, but more importantly, your area, your neighborhood focus, your local expert for.
That point about what you do seems really critical, especially, like you said, for people who've changed careers, the teacher turned agent or the lawyer moving into commercial. How long does it take, based on this research, for someone who knew them before to really see them in this new role just from social media?
Oh, it takes relentless consistency. If people knew you for 15 years as, say, a teacher, a few posts here and there about houses aren't going to cut it. It won't overwrite that old mental file. Your social media becomes that constant broadcast signal, reprogramming that professional identity in people's minds. And the sources really emphasize this. Consistent action isn't just about getting results, like more money. It's fundamentally about becoming someone, becoming that trusted, visible real estate pro. When you show up consistently online with valuable professional stuff, you start to internalize that identity yourself. And just as importantly, the market reflects it back to you. An erratic feed kind of signals an erratic approach, right? But a consistent, helpful feed, that says reliable expert.
Okay, so you build that consistent identity. Then the sources say the next step towards actually getting business relies on this core psychological trigger.
Yeah.
Liking. Tell us about this liking rule and how it applies to, say, an Instagram strategy.
Right, the liking rule. It's foundational in influence research. Simply put, we're way more likely to say yes to people we know and, crucially, like. So the strategy is pretty direct. Get potential clients to like you first. Often. Long before any transaction is even on the table. Think about Joe Girard, that legendary car salesman back in the 60s and 70s. The guy was out selling entire dealerships, not with pushy tactics, but because he mastered this. He made sure customers liked him.
How did he do that? Wasn't it something low tech?
Totally. His big secret. He sent personalized cards, holiday cards, little notes to his massive customer list every single month, just saying, I like you and I remember you. It made them feel connected and well-liked.
Okay, so sending physical cards monthly isn't maybe scalable for every agent today. What's the digital equivalent? How do you replicate that feeling of connection and being liked through, say, Instagram or Facebook?
It becomes about giving non-transactional value. That personalized card transforms into a piece of genuinely useful digital content. A quick video on local market trends that actually makes sense, a guide to navigating, I don't know, school zoning changes, highlighting a great new local coffee shop. These are digital gifts of your time and expertise. When you consistently offer value that helps them, solves a small problem, or just makes their day a bit better without immediately asking for the listing, you're building up that bank of liking and trust. Every comment you reply to, every helpful article you share, every behind-the-scenes glimpse of your work, it's all aimed at building that relationship. Your feed is like your digital storefront, but people are deciding if they like the shopkeeper first, you know? They need to see the human, the community member, the helpful resource before the salesperson. If all they see is buy this, you skip that vital liking step, and you're just another listing competing on features.
Okay, so we've got visibility, consistency, and building likability. The next challenge, based on the sources, is cutting through the sheer noise online. We're drowning in information. And there's a strong warning here. Spending big on fancy design or video production before you nail your core message, that's just expensive noise to the customer.
Absolutely. Because our brains are wired to conserve energy, confusion makes us tune out instantly. If someone lands on your profile and can't figure out in like 3 seconds what you do and how you help them specifically, they're gone. Scroll on. So building your narrative online has 2 main jobs: cut through confusion and reduce fear.
Okay, confusion and fear. How do we tackle those strategically with content?
Well, the sources suggest using 2 types of plans in your communication. To cut confusion, you use a process plan. It's simple, logical steps. But to tackle fear, which is often deeper, more emotional, you need an agreement plan.
An agreement plan.
Love it.
That sounds interesting. Can you break down the difference? A process plan seems straightforward, like step 1, step 2, step 3. But the agreement plan feels like it could be the real differentiator.
Exactly. A process plan is just the how. 1, we'll have a consultation. 2, we'll list your property effectively. 3, we'll guide you to closing. Necessary, yes, but not very comforting. The agreement plan, though, is a set of proactive promises you make to directly counter common client fears about working with an agent.
What kind of fears are we talking about?
Oh, you know the ones. Fear of being pressured into something, fear of getting locked into a long contract they can't get out of, fear of being ignored once the listing agreement is signed, fear of being misled about what their house is really worth. So your agreement plan tackles these head on. You feature it prominently, maybe in your Instagram highlights, pinned posts, website. It could say things like, our easy exit guarantee. If you're not happy, you can cancel our agreement after 30 days, no hassle. Or maybe our communication pledge. You'll get a detailed update every single Friday morning, period. Making these promises upfront shows you understand their anxieties and you've built your service to alleviate them. It builds massive trust.
Wow, yeah, I can see how that immediately sets an agent apart. It changes the focus from just what I do to how I protect you. But the sources push even deeper, urging agents to think about the client's underlying motivations, using this idea of closing the story loop.
Right, this pulls from frameworks like StoryBrand. It recognizes that every customer, fundamentally, is trying to solve problems on 3 levels. There's the external, the internal, and the philosophical. And your marketing, your content, needs to promise resolution on all 3. So the external problem is the obvious one. I need a bigger house, or I need to sell my current place. Simple. The internal problem is how that external problem makes them feel. The stress, the confusion, the frustration, maybe the fear of making a mistake. They want to feel confident, smart, and maybe even a little relieved. But the philosophical problem, that's the really deep one. It's about why this matters in the bigger picture of their life. It's about status, self-worth, making the right choice for their family's future, achieving a dream. For a first-time buyer, the philosophical angle might be, am I finally achieving stability and adulting properly? For someone downsizing, it might be, can I navigate this transition smoothly and find joy in this next chapter? Your digital content needs to subtly promise that working with you won't just get them the house, external, and make it less stressful, internal, but will actually help them become that better version of themselves they aspire to be, philosophical. Even simple things, like showing happy people in your branding photos, implicitly promises that outcome.
So it's selling the dream, not just the drywall. Selling the feeling of accomplishment or peace that the house represents. Okay, how do we boil all that external, internal philosophical problems, plus your plans down into something punchy for online, like an agent's one-liner or bio statement?
Yeah, that one-liner, which might actually be a couple of sentences, realistically needs to be super clear and visible everywhere, like your Instagram bio, your Facebook About section, everywhere. It has to instantly convey 4 things. 1, who's your ideal customer? Are you serving first-time buyers, luxury sellers, military families relocating? Niche down if you can. 2, what's their specific problem? Not just need to sell, but maybe overwhelmed by selling their parents' estate from out of town. Get specific about the pain point. 3, what's your plan to help? Briefly mention your unique approach, maybe referencing your process or agreement plan. We offer a streamlined process and communication guarantee. And 4, what will their life look like afterwards? Paint the picture of success. Close that story loop. Show them the happily ever after, the peace of mind, the successful transition, the financial security.
That's a powerful framework. But even before they absorb that core message, you need to build some initial rapport, right? The sources talk about adapting classic sales techniques like finding common ground for social media.
Absolutely. This is where that 4D acronym comes in handy. It's often used in customer service or sales calls to build rapport quickly, and it works perfectly for social content too. 4D stands for family, occupation, recreation, dreams. These are basically universal, safe, positive topics. So your social media content shouldn't just be about real estate. You weave in posts related to F4D.
Also, give me some examples for an agent.
Okay, family. Share info about local schools, family-friendly parks, or community events. Occupation. Highlight a major local employer doing well, or share tips for setting up a great home office. Recreation. Post about the best hiking trails nearby, a new restaurant opening, local sports teams. Dreams. Talk about long-term financial goals related to home ownership, market trends affecting investments, or even just aspirational lifestyle content related to your area. By touching on these F4 delectate topics regularly, you establish yourself as more than just an agent. You're a connected, knowledgeable member of the community. You build common ground before you pivot to the house talk.
But there's a line, isn't there? How do you use Airport authentically without, oversharing your own family dinner or getting too personal? Where's the balance between relatable and professional?
That's a really important distinction. The key is usually to keep the focus outward, on the community's F4D, not necessarily your personal life details, unless you're comfortable sharing strategically. So instead of endless pictures of your kids, you talk about the great local playground renovations, community family recreation. Instead of complaining about your job, you highlight a local business success story, community occupation. You're the curator and the guide to the community's F4D, not always the subject yourself. This way, you build that connection and trust. You show you understand their lives, their community, their aspirations, all through the lens of Fair D, making them feel like you get them before they even think about calling you for a listing. You become that relatable local expert.
Okay, we've covered the why, the identity, the liking, the clear narrative. Now let's get into what's the actual content strategy, because the sources are clear. Just posting listings over and over, that's not enough. You need content that provides real value.
Exactly. And a huge part of that value, especially in real estate, is visual. This brings us to the idea of staging for the right audience, but applied to your digital content, your photos, your reels, your video tours. You're not just staging a house anymore, you're staging for the screen, and specifically for the viewer's generational lens and aspirations. Different age groups, say millennials versus boomers, often have very different visual cues for what feels aspirational or modern or homey, largely shaped by the media they consume.
Those staging choices need to reflect the target demographic. If you want younger buyers, maybe minimalist and functional visuals work better than, say, heavy traditional furniture.
Precisely. A cluttered, dated look in your photos or videos can instantly turn off a younger buyer, even if the house itself has great bones. They need the visual cues that say, this space is worthy of me, according to their generational standards.
But are there staging basics that kind of cut across all demographics, things that just always look good digitally?
Oh, absolutely. 3 things are non-negotiable for good digital visuals, no matter who you're targeting: functionality, cleanliness, and state of repair. This is where agents can really shoot themselves in the foot. If your quick walkthrough video accidentally shows a cracked window pane, or really dirty grout in the bathroom tiles, or a leaky faucet, forget it. The viewer immediately thinks neglect or hassle. It completely undermines the message of a smooth, desirable transition. Those little details scream louder online.
Let's focus on specific actions then. What staging choices make the biggest difference for digital presentation? The sources mention clutter being a major enemy on screen.
Clutter is lethal for digital. On a small phone screen, even a little bit of clutter makes a room look tiny and chaotic. One of the biggest visual mistakes mentioned is furniture lined up against the walls, what the sources call wallflowers at a dance.
The bowling alley effect.
Exactly. It creates this awkward empty space in the middle and makes the room feel static and smaller in photos or video. The fix is to float furniture away from the walls, creating defined conversation areas or functional zones. This adds depth and dimension, making the space look way bigger and more inviting on camera.
And what about personal items? The material seems almost militant about removing everything personal.
It basically is. For digital marketing purposes, the house needs to be a neutral canvas. Viewers need to be able to mentally project their lives, their stuff, into the space. So yes, the rule is remove anything cute, anything overly personal like family photos everywhere, anything potentially polarizing like political signs or strong religious symbols, anything that snaps the viewer out of their daydream and makes them think about the current owner instead of themselves. When you're filming that video tour or taking photos, you have to be ruthless, generic, aspirational, potential, that's the goal. It's often tough for sellers to hear, but it's critical for maximizing digital appeal and getting those leads faster.
Okay, so the visual of the property is pristine. What about the agent's presentation within the content? How do they convey that vital authenticity and trust?
It comes down to confidence, but not an arrogant confidence, a confidence rooted in genuine expertise and in truly understanding the client's needs. When an agent in a video or a consultation can say with conviction, based on your goals that we discussed, this property is an excellent fit, and here's why. That carries the weight. That confidence comes from deep market knowledge and from actively listening to the client's or the audience's concerns. Digitally, this translates to content where you're presenting market analysis clearly, offering advice confidently, but humbly, and reassuring your audience that you know the path forward. It's that expertise-fueled confidence that bridges the gap between someone just following you and someone actually trusting you enough to hire you.
Right, so we have the psychology, the narrative, the visuals, the whole playbook. But, like we touched on earlier, none of it matters without consistent execution. This seems to be the biggest hurdle, moving from random posting whenever you feel like it to a structured, strategic plan you actually stick to.
Consistency really is everything. It's what turns social media from a time sink into a predictable business generator. And the main reason people struggle with consistency, according to these sources, is something called annualized thinking.
Annualized thinking. How does planning for the whole year actually hurt execution? That sounds counterintuitive.
It does, right. But think about it. If you set a big goal for December 31st, your brain kind of goes, okay, plenty of time. It allows you to rationalize slow starts, bad weeks, procrastination in Q1 or Q2, because the deadline feels so far away. But real success, real execution only happens now, today, this week. That's where the work gets done.
So what's the alternative?
The sources strongly advocate for the 12-week year framework. You essentially treat a 12-week period like an entire year. You set goals for that 12 weeks, break them down into weekly actions, and measure progress intensely. Suddenly, one bad week is a significant chunk of your year. There's immediate urgency. The focus shifts dramatically to this week and today, which is exactly where you need it to be for consistent execution. You just can't afford to procrastinate in a 12-week cycle.
Okay, that makes sense. It forces immediate action. How would an agent apply that 12-week year, thinking specifically to their social media efforts? What would a wildly important goal or KPI look like in that context?
Good question. A social media goal for a 12-week year shouldn't be vague like, get more leads. It needs to be an action you control, leading to that outcome. So maybe publish 10 high-quality video tours showcasing specific neighborhood features by week 12. Or initiate 30 meaningful conversations per week with potential local contacts via DMs. It's about focusing on those consistent, critical inputs, the daily and weekly tasks that you know will eventually lead to the desired outputs, leads, clients. If you consistently nail your weekly social media actions within that 12-week block, your future results become much more predictable. Non-execution becomes immediately obvious and painful.
But executing those daily tasks requires serious discipline, especially when the tool you're using, social media, is basically designed to distract you. It feels like a paradox.
It is a paradox, and the sources draw a parallel here. They talk about how financial struggles often stem from weak discipline. It's just easier to spend money impulsively because of all the temptations around us. The same applies to our time and focus. Digital discipline, actively fighting the urge to scroll endlessly, to get sidetracked by notifications, and instead dedicating focused blocks of time to strategic content creation and engagement. That's the core engine of execution online. It's a mental battle as much as a scheduling one.
So how do you build that mental muscle? What are practical steps an agent can take to develop the focus needed for consistent digital work amidst all the digital noise?
The sources suggest starting with mindset reprogramming, using things like affirmations, positive statements about your desired professional identity and actions reviewed daily. So instead of just wishing for clients, the affirmation might be, quote, I am a disciplined and focused real estate professional who consistently creates valuable content and engages meaningfully with my community online every day. Repeating this helps rewire your subconscious beliefs and, ultimately, your automatic behaviors. It sounds a bit woo, maybe, but the principle's about consciously directing your thoughts to support your goals.
Okay, internal programming. But what about external structures? The sources stress accountability pretty heavily too.
Accountability is the linchpin. It's the external pressure that often makes the difference between wanting to be consistent and actually being consistent, especially on days when motivation is low. Think about it. The most successful people actively seek out accountability coaches, mastermind groups, public commitments, tracking metrics. They know that leverage helps them push through discomfort and do the necessary work even when they don't feel like it. Without that structure, it's just too easy to let things slide. Oh, I'll post tomorrow. That's why disciplined, time-blocked activities, especially for things like prospecting, which online includes targeted engagement and content planning, are non-negotiable. You have to actively fight for that focused time, day in and day out. That's how the whole visibility plan actually gets built. Hashtag tag outro.
Well, this has been incredibly insightful. What emerges from this deep dive is a really clear blueprint. Success with social media in real estate isn't about finding some secret hack or chasing viral trends. It seems to be this powerful mix of understanding human psychology, using things like the liking rule, getting your story crystal clear, combined with, frankly, relentless consistency and accountability, maybe structured like that 12-week year. You really do have the tools now to go beyond just posting and start strategically building your business online.
Absolutely. It's about integrating these principles into your daily operations. And maybe let me leave you with one final thought to chew on, connecting all this back to how you're perceived in the market. The sources point out something interesting from the world of investing. It's often easier for people to determine relative value than absolute value. It's hard to know who is definitively the best agent in town, right? Or the absolute perfect time to buy or sell. But think about this. How easy do you make it for potential clients to determine your relative value compared to the agent whose profile they just scrolled past? Does your consistent, clear, helpful digital presence, your proactive agreement plan, your valuable FODI content, your confident expertise make your superior value immediately obvious? When you execute this digital strategy effectively, you establish that higher relative value instantly. You attract clients who already perceive you as the trusted expert, reducing the need to constantly compete on price or chase after clients who only care about the lowest commission. Your digital presence becomes your value proposition. So go build that value consistently starting today.